we're good.
Good evening and welcome to the Haverford School Board Committee meeting for Curriculum and Pupil Services. We have a great agenda this evening. If I could just ask everyone before we start to rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, do we have any administrative remarks this evening to kick us off?
No, we're ready.
Okay, so we will hop right into the agenda then. Our first presentation is on the federal program grant overview for the 24-25 school year consolidated application. And I believe Ms. Battistelli?
Actually, I think that one's going to be Mrs. Carter.
Okay, Ms. Carter, yes.
Yep.
And I don't know if they can pull it up on the screen, but it's LinkedIn if anybody needs it. So good evening. So each year, according to board policy, we need to bring before you the overview of our federal programs, how much we've received and how much, and what we will be using it for. So do you have it linked or should I wait for them to link it?
I mean,
You have it?
looking at it.
You're good to go? Okay, perfect. So we have 4 title programs. We have a Title I, which is for academic interventions for students. We have Title II, which is for professional development. And Title III is for our English language learners. And Title IV is also used for different forms of student and academic enrichment and support. As a district, just to start with Title I, we actually transfer our funds from Title IV into our Title I grant so that we have more funds to be able to provide interventions and supports and services for our students who are of need. And our reading specialists are the ones who work with our students. They do it through a push-in and a pull-out method, often during the MTSS block, which you've heard a lot about. And they're very excited to get started. We met with them today, so they will be starting shortly after they're done testing. We also are required to set funds aside for parent and family engagement. I know you worked on that policy recently, last year at some point, and then our schools also have their own parent and family engagement procedures. So a part of that is getting feedback from their families about how they would like to use the fund. So each school has about $1,200 each to be able to use and engage the families of our Title I program. To back up a little bit, we are a targeted assistant program, so it's not school-wide. So that means we have to identify and qualify students based off of qualifiers that our reading specialists set in place, and utilize the assessments to determine our most in need students. We have funds that we set aside for additional allocations for homeless, transportation, and we set it aside for federal program conferences so that we can continue to be updated on the latest information. We also are required within federal programs to actually set funds aside and give it to our non-public schools who have students that live in Havertown, but they go to other private schools in the area, parochial schools. And those students have to be from our 2 schools of Manoa and Linwood, pulling from those schools, and they have to qualify based off of their finances to be able to provide funds to those schools. So we have a few in the area, and we have a very good relationship with those schools and able to support them. Then going over to, and Title I is also supported for our non-pubs by the DCIU, which you recently just approved a proposal for us to work with them. Title II, which is professional development, I work closely with Ms. Saxa for the professional development and how to utilize the funds, and we're able to provide professional development for our teachers using that. And we also are required to set money aside for the non-pub schools that are within the Haverford School District, which is different than Title I, which can be anyone. So we have about 4 schools that we work with. This year, we're doing a little bit different. We're going to actually do the funds from within the district and manage those funds with our non-public schools. God bless you. And we have a really good relationship with our school, so we think that'll go well to help them be able to access the funds at a faster rate so that they can meet the needs of their staff at a secular PD. We transfer our Title III funds to the consortium at the DCIU, and they're able to provide different family engagement pieces for our ELL families, and they provide some services for our ELL students. And that's just a quick overview of our grants. Any questions?
Thank you for this very clear, easy to read presentation. I know a lot goes into each of these grants, but I think you've done a really nice job of just succinctly highlighting, what each entails. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Any questions? Sorry, I'm asking the table. All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
And if it's okay, I'll also just point out, it is, as you mentioned, Dr. Larson, a lot of coordination and work with our business department, and Mrs. Carter goes out and meets with the principals at all the non-public schools and works with the DCIU. So there's a tremendous amount of ongoing support that these programs require, and right behind the scenes kinds of things. And Mrs. Carter's level of organization and expertise in what is allowable and what we should move away from is really, really helpful in making these programs successful.
So we are going to move to item C on the agenda. After this, we will circle back to B, which is the science audit process. But now we'll have our presentation on 6th grade ELA resource recommendations.
And here with us this evening, as we're getting that pulled up, we have Mrs. Sandy Connolly, who is our K-12 Humanities Supervisor, and Mr. Jason Langen, who is our 7th grade English Language Arts teacher at the middle school, and he's also serving in the capacity of a curriculum development mentor this year, which we're very excited about. So we appreciate his contributions to this work as well.
Thank you. Thank you so much for inviting us here tonight to give you an update on what's going on with the humanities curriculum. We're going to give you just a small update on one specific area, and we are really excited to bring that to you tonight. So this will look familiar to you. As you can see, our secondary teachers are in the develop phase of the curriculum cycle. Last year we completed our audit, K through 12, and the secondary group are working on developing any curriculum changes that they will have, and that's what we'll focus on tonight for one specific grade, actually. This slide will look familiar to you because we presented these same steps in our update last May. Step 1 was training on and identifying priority standards, and that was completed this fall for grades 6 through 12. And that is something the teachers are doing, not the students, right? So the teachers had training on how to identify priority standards, and then they did that work on identifying them and creating a vertical alignment to make sure that all standards were covered. August 27th, the grades 6 through 8 teachers received a middle school presentation on the Wit and Wisdom resource that was adopted in grades K through 5 last year. And in the past, all of our presentations for Wit and Wisdom have mostly been on the elementary level. The middle school teachers wanted to take a look at it, and so they had a presentation that was specifically geared towards middle school. They were asked to evaluate if this research addressed the work that was outlined for development. Specifically, did it cover the priority standards? Did it identify explicitly taught vocabulary and provide vertically aligned writing instruction, and to see whether the topics and texts were engaging for students? Now, Mr. Jason Langen, our middle school curriculum implementation mentor, is going to describe the process of what the teachers went through. So here you go.
Good evening, everyone. Again, I'm Jason Langen. This is my new role this year. I was working as the curriculum audit team last year. This is my 21st year at HMS. This first information that you're looking at here, we had the opportunities to explore the resources last spring. And I think we were struck by, because we did look at a few other resources and weren't as happy with them. And I think we were struck by the fact that the elementary schools were so excited by it. And so that said, maybe that's worth a closer look. So as we looked at it, the teachers had the ability to check out not only the print resources, but also the digital resources. So that you have modules that are created, and if you look up on the screen, it's segmented into individual modules, separated by a general theme. And so each one of those modules has an individual teacher's guide, as well as an individual student book. The teachers also had the opportunity to preview the digital resources, which are a lot of the same print resources are also available online, but it also would provide different links and things that the students would be able to use. And they also looked at the instructional routines that were in there and how that was associated with the work within the modules. So again, in the bold, you'll see that's a general theme, and then under it, it might be a little hard to see, but there's a writing within the entire program, but that's sort of the focus writing for each individual module, so informative, narrative, and the argument writing too. They also recommended, the Wit and Wisdom people recommended in the first year of implementation that they only teach 3 modules, as the teachers are getting used to learning how to use the resources, and then to move to the 4th module eventually, if that made sense for them to do. This slide looks at the individual novels that are built within the program. And I think it was really important for the teachers at the middle school that a lot of them were very adamant about not wanting to lose novels and to keep our curriculum as a novel-based curriculum, and that was important. So this here, you can see, again, the modules, and on the right, you'll see the core texts that are involved there. So most modules have 2 books associated with them. The 6th grade teachers were particularly happy with that because it includes Bud Not Buddy by Christopher Paul Curtis, which is already a book that they're teaching. So they liked the idea that they were going to start with something they're already familiar with the book, and now they can familiarize themselves with the resources. And also Out of the Dust was a book that 6th grade used for many years. So there are actually many of the teachers who are still familiar with using that, and that was very attractive to them too. But along with that, and you also see the ones that are in gray towards the bottom, those are the nonfiction books. So each module has a combination of either fiction or nonfiction, and even within the modules, there are supplemental articles, videos, art, poems, other things that they can use that the teachers in the past have been always curating to go along with the units of the novels that they teach, but now it's sort of embedded within the program, and it can follow through nicely. When we were looking at the work, it was really important that we provided a sense of reflection. So I actually had each one of the teachers, because I think sometimes when you're in a big group, there's sort of that group think model, and you don't always get a chance to hear from every individual. And there's always like 1 or 2 people that are the louder person of the bunch that sort of speak up. And I really wanted to make sure everybody had a chance to sort of weigh in on that. And so they looked at that and they wanted to see, does the resource provide what we're looking for? Is it going to meet the priority standards? Those are some of the questions that we asked. And what I received back, particularly from the 6th grade teachers, was an overwhelming, yes, this is something that we want. As a matter of fact, the majority of them used the word need, that this is something that they really felt that they had a need for. And so that was how they responded when looking at that. And along with that, the 7th and 8th grade teachers also agreed that that was something that they wanted for the 6th grade as well, that they thought that was important for them. And I was happy to receive that response from the 6th grade teachers.
Thanks, Jason. Did I go forward? Yeah. So one of the things that we all thought would be really helpful about having the Wit and Wisdom resource in 6th grade is that it would provide a seamless transition to middle school for our students. You know, going from elementary school to middle school can really be a challenge. You've got to figure out how to navigate a new building. You now have got students from all the 5 elementary schools. How do you use a locker? And do I have to figure out how to do a combination on my lock? Where is my classroom? There's just so much to manage when you get to the middle school. And so for these students, the 6th grade teachers really thought that if they already understood the way, in fact, they're going to know it better than the teachers the first year probably, because they will have done it all this year in 5th grade. And then they're going to be in a classroom where they're going to have similar instructional routines. The setup of the slides and the way the curriculum is rolled out is going to be very similar. So that will be familiar for students and should also bring some comfort. They also felt that having the text that's the same as what they currently use, but not Buddy, is a text that the teachers love and they wanted to continue to use. They did find that it covered the priority standards. They identified vocabulary words that would be explicitly taught, have been identified for them. And these are all auditors' recommendations. So if you were around in the spring, you heard what those auditors' recommendations are, and this was ticking off those different recommendations. They felt the topics and text were rigorous and content-rich. They felt the instructional routines were really engaging and appropriate for 6th graders. And then the writing process aligns vertically. So it's going to align with 5th grade, and it's going to continue into 7th grade. So all of those were recommendations from our auditors, and it is meeting those recommendations. We will evaluate whether or not we'll be able to implement all 4 modules. We feel like in the first year, the 3 modules as recommended makes sense. But then we would like to continue in the in the following year as we're ready to implement that 4th module. If approved, the teachers may pioneer a module next year to lead into the transition and to start to be familiar with how it goes. Yes, this year, sorry. The pioneering would occur this year. And then what we're looking for actually is this recommendation. The middle school ELA teachers respectfully recommend that the board adopt Wit and Wisdom as our core curriculum resource for 6th grade. This will be a continuation of the curriculum resource from grades K-5, providing continuity as students transition from elementary school to middle school. We'll explore the possibility for a few teachers to pioneer a module or more as peer leaders to support their colleagues with full implementation for the 25-26 school year. We were not able to get a exact amount of money that it would cost, but we're able to figure out it will be around $35,000 for that initial purchase. And then as there is with K through 5, there's a recurring cost for the student consumables, but that's covered in the humanities budget. We're already purchasing some consumables we won't need to purchase anymore. And I think that something that is similar to elementary is this will streamline some of their resources, because we have been also using another resource for additional practice on skills and things like that, that I don't think the teachers will feel is necessary. So that's something we'll look at as well, but I think we'll be able to streamline a little bit and go straight to Wit and Wisdom for 6th grade next year. So our next steps are that we'll request board approval for the resources on October 24th. We'll develop the curriculum in November through July. We'll do the same process that we've been working on in K through 5, creating these curriculum frameworks for us. Those documents we're finding are really helpful for having sort of one document to point to know what are the essential questions, what are the words that are going to be directly taught, what are the differentiation strategies, both to support our struggling readers and our high achieving students. And it's sort of all in one place. So we'll be working on that. There will be some professional development that last year we began in the summer, really, with our teachers at the very, very end of the year. We'll try to do that sooner for our middle school teachers. And then, all the professional development that we've been doing for elementary. And then we'll see about the pioneering of the module. It is a little complicated because the modules build, they get more rigorous. And so we'll have to figure out, how we would pioneer. And then we hope to implement in the 25-26 school year with your approval. So thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much for that very succinct but detailed overview, and for all the work that went into the process, because I know you're just coming off the heels of the K-5 adoption, and then to also be, in this stage of the review cycle. Just appreciate everything you put into it. Also, just the importance of getting teacher input into this, so thank you for your work as well. And just, those questions that you were asking them they're getting right at the heart of what's happening in the classroom. So this is very exciting. Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Sam?
Okay, and now we're going to circle back to the science audit process.
Good evening.
Dr. Nesbitt.
So we are beginning the audit process. I think the last time we did this was 2017, 2018. And in 2017, 2018, the Pennsylvania Department of Ed had not updated their science standards since about 2005. And they were science and technology standards. Between the last time we did this update and now, in about 2022, the state board said it's time to update our science standards, and they're officially coming on board in 2025. So we're right in the middle of that process. So what is science curriculum? We're really looking at making sure that we're aligned to the standards. Fortunately, when the state decided to adopt, or as they pursued adopting new standards, and when they finally implement the new standards, they've renamed them. They're called the STEEL standards, which stands for Science, Technology, Engineering, Environmental Literacy, and Sustainability. Fortunately, it is very much similar to the Next Generation Science Standards, which were kind of published in 2013 and many states adopted. And so the STEEL standards are kind of the NGSS standards with like a little tiny asterisk that says PI slightly modified these. And when they did adopt them, I was actually at some of the meetings, the state meetings, arguing to just adopt the NGSS standards. And for the most part, that's what they did. And as long as you're aligned to the standards, it does ensure that certain skills and standards and things are sequential. So it really lays out what students should learn in 3rd grade so that they can learn something in 5th grade so they can learn something in 7th grade. So what's the audit process look like? This year, we are conducting that audit. Next year, or at the end of this year and summer, we move into a developmental stage where we start to create new. And that developmental stage is somewhat flexible where some high school teachers might be like, I'm going to spend the summer, we're going to develop, and we're going to hit the fall running. Or some teachers might be like, we need all of next year to develop and hit the following school year running. So that we sort of wait till we get there to decide what that's going to look like. And then we implement. So some of these things may be implemented next year, some of these might be implemented the following year. And then from that point, we monitor and make adjustments as we go through it. So this is just the same map that you saw before with Sandy is now in the next stage of this. We're right at the audit stage of this. And what does the audit look like? So what exactly does that mean? Essentially, it means that we really look at what are we teaching. We break out, the books, the tests, the quizzes, the homework, the lesson plans, the PowerPoint slides, everything that we do. And we look at the standards that are now the STEEL standards. And again, fortunately, in 2017-18, we kind of tried to split the difference between the state standards from 2005 and the Next Generation Science Standards. So even at that time, especially middle and high school, we were attempting to align with the Next Generation Science Standards as much as possible. They still are slightly different. We'll survey teachers. What are they using? What's it look like? We'll do a gap analysis. We'll look at what we think we're teaching and what we should be teaching and see what are we not teaching that we should be or what should it be looking like. We'll do some data analysis with the subjects that really are tested from the state, but also our own internal analysis of data and what are students studying, looking at enrollment, recommendations, all sorts of data. We'll also do an external analysis. And again, these overlap somewhat. Fortunately, a great group of teachers, and they already have connections to other middle schools, other high schools, people on Twitter, professional developers, college professors. So as we're going through the internal audit, we're also reaching out outside the organization to see what are other organizations doing, what other schools look like. Last time we went through this process was sort of part of the process that updated the whole science wing and the construction of the high school. We visited a lot of science labs and said, we got a lot of the content, but our labs just don't look the same as some of these other schools' labs. And fortunately, we were able to move the whole lab project forward. So that was a huge accomplishment the last time. So we'll look at a lot of different things. We will definitely be surveying parents and students throughout the process as well. Now, this is where it gets sort of interesting. Traditionally, I would be talking to you about a K through 12 audit. And traditionally, we do attempt to do it all at the same time. Science at the elementary has always been really neat science kits. And the science kits were produced by the Smithsonian Institute about 20 years ago. And there were 3 or 4 kits in every single grade. And as the state started announcing that they were going to make these changes, science is really expensive. The materials and the equipment that's necessary to conduct hands-on experiments really is costly. And at the elementary level, there aren't that many companies that actually do produce and provide science kits, particularly aligned to next generation science standards or steels. So back in 2021, I proposed to Dr. Rushi and Ms. Saxa, and we actually presented to the board back then about moving the elementary kits forward on a gradual process. And we've been doing that. So we've actually purchased kits from Smithsonian. They're the same kits that we had purchased 20 years ago. It's just they're the new and updated kits, and they were aligned to the next generation science standards, so we knew that they would align to the steel standards. And we've been purchasing 2 years ago a kit, another 2 years ago, another year ago a kit, and then moving forward. So the elementary is really more about sealing in what they've been working on and sort of finalizing that plan, and then the middle and high school will undergo more the traditional audit. So this just reviews basically what I said, how everything changes. Really, the big news is that the assessment is also changing. So this school year, I can't go back. Yeah. So this school year, our 5th grade elementary students will be taking a science test. It is actually, according to the state, they have appealed to the federal government. We haven't heard final word on that, but it's actually not supposed to be part of accountability this year, and instead just sort of a trial test. What? Yeah, okay. So I didn't check today, but the last I had seen, it was still not technically approved by the federal government. And this year, the Keystone Biology test will also have some pilot questions in it, and then in theory, next year, the tests will be the official tests. What's a little bit challenging about this is that we have not seen any sample question at all for what the testing will look like. So we're sort of, we've updated everything, we're aligning everything to the standards, but still, whenever we really want to be assessed, we don't know what the state's true assessment is going to look like. This was the timeline on updating the Smithsonian kits, where basically we put one in, then we put another one in, then we put another one in. Now we're going to finalize with 2 more kits. We've purchased one of those. We have 1 more kit to purchase at this point. So the prior 3rd grade units, they really were very good science units. And kids got to learn about plant growth and development. They got to learn about rocks and minerals. They got to learn about chemical reactions. They were not bad by any means. But one of the things that science has been arguing for with the next generation science standards, and when we talk to science professors and leaders in the field, science is no longer a box. It is very rare to be even engineers, it's sort of rare to just be a mechanical engineer. There's a lot of overlapping in all of the sciences. And it's more about doing science and understanding the overlaps in science than it is about just identifying rocks and minerals. So even in third grade, you can see that, I can't see because my eyes aren't good enough to read all the way up to that screen, but I know that they are questions. So how do we predict patterns of motion? I can sort of make that one out. So, and I actually remember that one as the third grade unit. That's really cool. Because I was a physics teacher, so I like patterns of motion. So it starts with really exciting things, forces, and what things move. And one of the things that these units do is they force kids to first discover and learn science, and then use that learning to try to apply to something else. That unit itself, I remember there's actually an introduction to how magnets, it starts with forces and motion. There's an introduction for how magnets can make things move. And at the end of the unit, the science challenge is to design something using magnets to get rid of trash. And so it's a whole project that they can come up with. How do I organize trash using magnets? What metal becomes part of that? And then the extension even beyond that is to design something for a playground using magnets. Again, understanding forces and motion. So in the classroom, the kids really are tying science into many different things. Again, what it looks like on a paper and pencil multiple choice test is what we're still not really sure about. So the next generation science standards, really, we did look at these last time we were through. There's a beautiful website that goes through them. Now, the STEEL standards really do align with them quite well. So we'll be looking at the STEEL standards, but also looking at the next generation science standards when we review this at the middle school level. Again, if my eyes were working, I could easily discern all of these things, but they actually, they might have changed the colors and changed the order a little bit, but they're basically the same things. We're looking at disciplinary core ideas, which really is the stuff. We're looking at cross-cutting concepts, which are concepts that go all along. And then we're looking at the science and engineering practices. And so in math, we have the mathematical practices that are K through 12. In science, now we have the science and engineering practices and the cross-cutting concepts that are also K through 12. So even back in this elementary unit, if you look deep into the forces of motion, you'll get to seeing what I just talked to you about, how they're designing swing sets or designing trash compactors. Those are science and engineering practices. They'll also talk about some of the cross-cutting concepts within that forces and motion so that they can relate one unit to the next unit. So these big 8 concepts, not all 8 of them are in every unit, but 1 might be in one unit, 2 might be in another unit, and through the continuum, through all the years, you'll see these 8 concepts multiple times through all the units. Disciplinary core ideas, these are things where in 3rd grade, we introduce forces and motion. We reintroduce forces and motion at a higher level in 6th and 7th grade, and then we reintroduce it again at an even higher level in high school physics and honors physics and AP physics. So in 3rd grade, when we're talking about forces in motion, we're just talking about like if you push a wagon, it moves. In 6th grade, we might say if you push a wagon with a certain amount of force, how fast does it go? And by the time we get to high school, we'll talk much more in detail about it. And then the cross-cutting concepts, again, these are concepts that many of which, Jen and I were talking the other day about how they go beyond science, recognizing cause and effect. That's not a scientific cross-cutting concept. That's absolutely something that's in our world, but they tie together these units. So the performance expectation is that kids can tie those things together. So the higher level of the next generation science standards is not necessarily just that a student understand that a force makes something move, but then can apply it, can engineer something, can design something, and can think about how that might apply to a biological concept as well. And that's the part that takes it to an even higher level, but really is what 21st century science looks and tastes like. Again, we don't know what that's going to look like on a computerized test. I said paper and pencil, and it's actually funny. The state said that if kids take the test this year in pencil and paper, which is our present plan, they won't be compared to any student that's taking it on computer, because they're actually going to be slightly different tests, and they can't even compare the two groups of students because of the way the testing will occur. So the real test comes in place next year. This year, again, is just the pilot year. This is a pretty little sort of outlay of all the units. In 2023, 2024, we already last year did the green column. In 24, 25, that's this year, we'll be implementing the blue column. And then next year, we'll be implementing the purple and yellow columns. And basically, the way that it worked was we'd purchase a kit. Teachers would work all summer to tear through that kit. And it was a group of science interested elementary teachers who would spend some time over the summer to dig into the kit and then do a mini professional development unit of that kit to all the teachers so that they could teach it that year. So we've moved into this gradually. It's also because science is so hands-on and so messy at the elementary level, it was appreciated that we attached it that way rather than here's 4 brand new kits all in one year. So like I said, science is not inexpensive. These kits are very expensive, which is one of the reasons why we didn't update the kits in 2017 and 18. But when the state published that they were moving towards new standards, our old kits just weren't going to prepare kids for the newest tests. So again, thank you for your permission a few years ago to move forward with that. And this is what we have spent a significant amount of money replacing those kits. We expect that those kits, again, will last for a very long time. There are consumables within those kits that we replace, but the paperwork, the documentation, the learning, all of that is built in and most likely will last for many, 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 many years again. At the secondary level, again, it will be expensive. We will need to be updating our middle school and high school curriculum. And I know, right off the top, our three of our science AP curriculums, those are also only good for 6 years whenever we buy the license. And it happens to have been 6 years ago that we bought AP Biology, AP Environmental Science, and AP Chemistry. And good news, those classes have grown since 2017-18. We have more sections of AP Environmental Science and AP Chemistry than we did 6 years ago, but that just means we're going to need more resources for them. So at the end of this year, we are definitely going to be asking for supplies for middle and high school science. What that will look like, I'll give you a closer update to that sometime in the spring or late winter. So the next steps, we continue the analysis. We've done a lot of the looking at the standards and comparing, sort of started the gap analysis. We'll start doing some surveys and we'll start doing some visits, and then we will provide an update sometime in January and see where it goes from there. This is a quote that's left over from last thing, but it seems to be really very good, that the best guess about a combination of traits that guarantees employment in the economy, elite technical skills, the probing mind of a scientist, and a deft human touch. In math, we've also been working on, I talked about building mathematical thinkers a little bit last school year, and a 5th grade teacher had hanging in their room, thinking is what you do when you don't know what to do. And I just thought it was an awesome quote for little 5th graders, and it really is what we're looking for. Most of the time when I ask the high school science teachers, hey, can you guys do this? And they're like, I don't know, but we can figure it out. And that's really what we want to inspire for our scientists, is the ability to think and figure things out themselves. That's it.
Thank you so much, Dr. Nesbitt. Do you have any questions, Ms. Lee?
I have no questions. I feel like that was very thorough. There's just so much going on. And I do expect to be able to walk up to one of these, you know, fifth graders and say, come on, let's solve a problem, like, because.
That's the goal.
Very nice, thank you.
This is really exciting. I mean, the first thing that's coming to mind to me, you know, as the parent of a now third grader, just thinking about how children when they're younger are just so curious about the world. And as I'm looking at these essential questions, and just the way that this proposed curriculum is, curriculum is structured, just I think it's gonna hold students' curiosity, maybe a little bit longer than otherwise, so that's great. Quick question for you. If I'm remembering correctly, I know there have been some criticisms of the PA core math standards at some point in time because they were found to be less rigorous than the Common Core state standards. Do you have any concerns about Steele's being maybe Pennsylvania watering down NGSS?
I think, to be honest, they made them a little more confusing. So it takes a little bit more work to really figure out what it is, but so far, and again, I was a physics guy, and you can't be a physics person and a biology person at the same time really, really well. Like maybe some people can, but I was not. So I defer to the people who have doctorates in biology to dig into the biology standards at the high school level. And that's what we're doing right now. And when we talk about sustainability, that is more in the environmental sciences and biological sciences. So they really are the ones that are the experts in that area starting to look at it. When I look at it in 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th grade, they line up really, really well between what Steele's is and what NGSS is. I don't fully understand why they chose to rename them and really to pull out sustainability and environmental literacy when it was built in most of the units. So that was a little bit confusing, but when you look at NGSS, you pretty much are doing what they're saying you should be doing for Steele's.
Is there any flexibility, like once Steele's is implemented, like we can kind of have supplementing with NGSS standards? Is that? Yeah,
I mean, they're definitely an enormous
answer.
overlap. And to be frank, you can't buy a book which is PA Steele's aligned. You can buy a book which is NGSS aligned. So the majority of our materials as we go down the road of looking at, I mean, the elementary units were NGSS aligned, which happens to very much line up with the Steele standards in grades 1 through 5. When you do this crosswalk between the two, they're essentially the same. So when we look at a new high school biology book or curriculum or whatever it might be that we do, the only option is NGSS. And so it will be mostly NGSS, and then we will make sure that it aligns exactly to the Steele's.
Thank you.
Yep.
And one final question too, just kind of inspired by the Wit and Wisdom presentation we had. I know a lot of Wit and Wisdom incorporates some science topics. I'm just wondering if maybe at some future point there's exploration to kind of like cross-curricular connections with Wit and Wisdom and the science.
Yeah, we've talked about it a couple times actually. There's a little bit in kindergarten that we're already doing right in kindergarten, and it definitely does cross over in some areas. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Okay, Ms. Sachs, I will turn it back over to you.
Great, thank you so much. The next item on our agenda is just an opportunity to respond to any additional questions that board members may have regarding a strategic plan facilitator. As Dr. Rucci has stated in the past, our strategic plan is from 2020 to 2025, and that means that this is our last school year of the current plan. And what we are proposing is that we engage in the strategic planning process this year, so that by the end of this year, we have a new strategic plan that will be able to take us through the next several years. In order to do that, we would like to be able to use a facilitator who can help to gather some information objectively, organize it, and help us, guide us to what we find is the right thing for our school district and our community. So this is just the opportunity to do that. I don't know, Dr. Rucci, if you had anything else you wanted to add to that.
It may just be useful for the may just be useful or interesting for the public to know that we did receive proposals from 3 potential facilitators, and then took a look at how, like, to what degree are they including multiple voices? How are they doing that? How accommodating are they going to be to just scheduling multiple opportunities for people to participate in the process? In addition to looking at the logistics of things like the formal report, does their proposal include a presentation to the board? Does it include, meetings just with the board, or an input opportunity for board members to provide input as well? So having, looked at that, at those 3, we do, have a recommendation that we've shared with the board for facilitator Judy Wilson. Judy has done work in the district. Judy facilitated the last strategic planning process, so we also see benefit there to helping us to assess where we are and look at these frameworks, and do these frameworks still meet the goals that we have? Are there goals that we want to add, or are there goals that we want to modify in some way? When you look at those 3 areas of, preparing contemporary citizens, social emotional wellness, and diversity and inclusion, you never really say you're finished. So it's not like we're not finished that. So what is the next iteration of that work? And if the work needs to include a different pathway, to get there, we really think that with the background that she has, that we'll be able to have the district positioned really well to continue this work.
Thank you both. I guess a quick question about strategic plans more generally. So as we're nearing the end of this current strategic plan, is there some sort of way that we tie the bow on it, kind of reevaluating each of those goals, how far we've gotten in working to achieve them?
Yes, in fact, our goals this year, we are not taking on new action steps. Rather, we are gauging to what degree the prior action steps have been implemented successfully. And therefore, it allows us to sort of monitor, to reflect. We've been doing a lot of professional development. Now we're going to be checking in. Are we seeing actual practices change in the classroom? Are children experiencing anything different as a result of that? And so we're not dropping any work, but we want to really gauge where are we, because we want to know that as we're moving into the next steps. What might need to be continued, what might need to be shifted, what can we say, okay, yes, check the box, we got to the goal we wanted to get to. So we do plan at the end of the year, I believe it's at our May meeting, to have some kind of information sharing regarding where we've landed thus far on that, really where we've landed, period, on the 2020 to 2025 plan.
Awkward.
I know.
I'm kidding. Okay. Thank you so much. And can we move now on to information items?
Sure. Thank you for the opportunity to do so. I do have a few information items. 2 are repeats. I just wanted to make sure that everybody caught, and this will also be in the Haverford happenings, and we will ask principals to push out this information as well. The science PSSA is going to occur in grade 5 this year. 4th grade will not be taking a science PSSA anymore. And as Dr. Nesbitt said, it is 5th grade is made up entirely of field test items. So it is not, sometimes they do a combination of old test items and new test. This one's all field test. They felt like that was the way to learn quickly which items could be used, because they didn't have time to sort of phase them in. So that means those who took a 4th grade science PSSA last year will again take a 5th grade science PSSA this year, just to be very clear. And also the biology keystone will include field tested items. And as Dr. Nesbitt said, we don't have much any information about what those items look like. And there has been some rumor that it is sort of the more dynamic kind of test questions where you like click and drag things places or so like the actual format may be very different as well. So we eagerly await more information from the state regarding that.
what's the point? Like, how are they getting credit for this? Like, if this is all test, that means this is just an experiment, it doesn't count, right?
For the fifth grade, it will be all field test, and it will not count for performance accountability. Participation, they do still need to participate, so we are still held accountable for that. At this point, they plan to furnish us with some data regarding performance, but they have told us it won't be to the degree that we normally get back about student performance because it's a field test. So
I mean,
biology,
there's nothing
though.
we can do about this,
No,
right?
no.
I mean, so it's not like I can't say aim your angry emails to PDE, or there's no point, right? All right,
You'll never
then,
get a
Right.
response.
Bio will still include the regular test items, but they will also be field testing new items. So at least that one will be a little bit. So yes, because they still need to take the biology test and pass the biology as well as the other keystones, as part of the graduation requirements. So that piece is the same. But I just wanted to make sure that it was like really out there in the world. We also will have coming to the board at our next school board meeting next week, a contract from Brandywine Virtual Academy. Just wanted to give you a heads up that that's coming. This is a group that in the very rare cases where we might not be able to program online for a student or maybe 2 students ever a year, Brandywine Virtual Academy is able to provide programming for those students. And this just allows us to, if that time should come during the school year, work directly with them right away so the student doesn't have to miss out on any education. The next item is just back to school nights. I hope that people have been able to begin attending back to school nights and enjoy the ones that they've been able to go to. I know we had one at Coopertown last night that went really well, and we have one at the high school tonight. I know it's an exciting time for everyone to learn more about what their students are learning and try and find their way, through the hallways to all those classrooms. So we're very excited about those. We hope that folks are learning about curriculum, about resources. They should be hearing about homework and the new homework policies, and just really getting to know their teachers and what to expect from the school year. And then my final note is just, as I'm looking at the time, it's 7:30. And I do just want to note that it's the beginning of the year. So this meeting reflects sort of where we are in the year in that there's not as much content in the beginning of the year. But like fair warning, the rest of the meeting agendas are pretty well packed already, because that's the nature of the business, right? We will have more information to share as the year goes on. So I just didn't want anyone to get disappointed by the fact that it was only an hour tonight. We will certainly have lots and lots to share with folks in the future. And that's all I have as information items.
Thank you so much, Ms. Saxa. We're going to move on now to public comment, if there's anyone who would like to speak. Okay, if you could just please come to the podium and state your name and confirm your residency in the township.
Yes, I will. So we still have this oversized podium, huh? I'm Rich McGlory, and I live on Dill Road in Haverford, Pennsylvania. And I can't say enough about the presentations tonight. And certainly, the visuals are amazing. I taught in the Stone Ages, but it's really nice. The first thing I would say, and I was a Title I reading coordinator, so I really appreciate all the work you did to make that visual, Mrs. Carter. I really do. And I would like to have a copy of it. Is it online or can I get it or something?
Yes.
Because certainly it plays to, my grandson, an autistic child who's on a different trajectory in everything, okay? And as far as the wit and wisdom is, I would like my grandson to be included in the use of wit and wisdom. He has about a first grade reading level now. He didn't speak until he was 8 and 9. He knows a lot of things visually that we don't even know, and he has a vocabulary that is way above his grade level and a comprehension ability way above his grade level. So the biggest thing I'm happy about is the Title I money is going for a reading specialist. I want Johnny on not a push-in reading specialist. I want him to go to a reading specialist and be taught with interesting, authentic materials. So I would like it very much if we provided some to his classroom and his reading specialist. And we work on materials that are low level, high interest. You know, and I'm looking to him, and what I said, I want to be clear about this to the IEP meeting we had over summer, we're not done working out the IEP, is that I would be ecstatic if he, through his 3 years in the middle school, ended up with a second or third grade instructional level. I taught 3 classes some years of kids in high school with second and third grade levels, and they can make tremendous progress from there on. And we will need reading specialists in high school too, because that's all Johnny's going to have. And I also believe that there are many autistic children who could benefit from a reading specialist too. I am a reading specialist. I have a master's degree in psychology of reading. If we don't get interesting materials to Johnny at his instructional level, the instruction will not be effective for him this year, okay? And I wish that for all the kids with autistic, and it's not just the autistic kids. There's a lot of special needs kids, and there's a lot of kids who just have reading disability, like dyslexia, okay? And he's making a great transition to high school. You have wonderful teachers, but I think they need more materials at instructional levels of the kids that they teach, which are interesting to them and authentic, okay? They print out stuff from computers. It's the same stuff Johnny had the first 5 years of school. He's ready to get in there. He's an intelligent little kid who learned to talk late like a lot of autistic children. And believe me, he outsmarts his pop-up time and time again. So thank you for all the work you put into that. That was an amazing amount of work. And collaborative decision-making is always the best decision-making. Thank you very much for the work you all did.
Thank you. Okay, seeing no other public speakers, is there anything else before we close out our meeting for this evening?
Just to note that our next meeting is October 14th. Wait, let me get the date, sorry. Actually, we're on a little different, sorry, it's November, that's why. We're doing every other month, that's right. November 14th. November 14th, 6:30 in this room, 6:30 to 8:30, and we look forward to that.
Great. Thank you so much, Ms. Saxon.
Thank
Okay,
you.
have a good evening, everyone.
Yes, that will be. Yes, buckle up, that's got a lot going on.
That agenda is already. Are you